This is Professor Melanie Hildebrandt, and I'm going to take you through the calculations from a problem from Chapter 6. This comes directly from the textbook. If you have edition 12, this is question 9 and 10 in Chapter 6 on page 149. If you do not have the 12th edition, it's okay. You should just be able to follow along with what I'm presenting to you. So in this problem, we're given a demand and supply schedule for college meals. I've listed that supply and demand schedule for you here. The reason for the pink box around the last two lines is because this was accidentally left off the chart that's given to you in the textbook, and we're going to need that information to answer one of our questions. So the first question, 9a, simply says, what are the equilibrium meal price and equilibrium quantity of meals? Well, we define equilibrium in an earlier chapter as simply the price where quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. And so if you look down through our quantity demand and quantity supply columns, you would see, hopefully, that at a price of 6, quantity demanded is 2,500 meals, quantity supplied is also 2,500 meals. So the answer then for 6A, our equilibrium price is $6 per meal, and our equilibrium quantity of meals is 2,500. The next question, 9B, says, if the college put a price ceiling on meals at $7 a meal, what is the price students pay for a meal, and how many meals do they buy? I think for some of you, an easier way to see this might be to draw a graph. So let's just do that really quickly. I'm going to draw our basic, and get it on the screen here. All right, demand curve, our supply curve. We just found on the previous question our equilibrium price to be $6, and our equilibrium quantity is 2,500. Okay, so this question is saying, well, what would happen if a price ceiling is set higher than 6 at, let's say, 7? So if this was the price ceiling. Recall from the material in this chapter that a price ceiling is a maximum allowed price. So if the government says, okay, you can't charge a price beyond 7, if that's the ceiling, the market's response is, okay, we're just going to stay at equilibrium then, because the equilibrium price is below the maximum allowed amount. So the answer then for 9B, what price do students pay? We're going to stay at equilibrium. So our price is still going to be $6. Quantity also will not change, and we'll stay at 2,500. Then the question says, well, what if the college put a price ceiling on meals at $4? So now we're going to go down here to $4 on our graph. And this is the actual price ceiling. So we need to compare quantity supplied to quantity demanded. So going back to our supply schedule here, we need to look at the price now of $4. And at $4, quantity demanded is 3,000, and quantity supplied is 1,500. So let's draw those in our graph. Okay, so again, quantity supplied is 1,500, and quantity demanded would be higher at 3,000. Now the question specifically says, if we have a price ceiling of $4, what is the quantity bought, the shortage of meals, and the maximum price that someone is willing to pay for the last meal? Okay, so let's start with, well, what's the quantity bought? The quantity bought is simply what's available, or the quantity supplied. And so the answer to that would be 1,500 meals. The next question says, what's the shortage? Well, our shortage is the difference between quantity demanded and quantity supplied. How much does quantity demanded exceed? So this area here represents our shortage. And so we would find the shortage is equal to 3,000 minus 1,500, or also, fix the E there, 1,500 mils. Now the very last question for part 10, or question 10, excuse me, last part, what's the maximum price that someone is willing to pay for the last meal available? Well, the last meal available is going to be the 1,500th meal. So we need to go back to our schedule, and you're looking at what's someone going to pay for that 1,500th meal. So we go down a quantity demand curve, and we would see that it would be a price of $10. And that's why we needed the last two lines of our market supply schedule. Hopefully this helps you some with some of the material from chapter 6.